Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. I want to talk to you about a couple of things in this video, but the primary thing that we will be talking about is this unprecedented attack that came from Israel on Lebanon with the explosive pagers on Lebanese civilians. So we've had a confirmation coming out from Lebanon that at least 2,800 people were wounded and 9 were martyred in a massive cyber attack that came from Israel on the Lebanese people, where they had many pagers detonating with those who were holding them. Now, when it comes to the people who were targeted, they are primarily members of Hezbollah. However, many of them are non-combatants, meaning they work in the healthcare sector. They work with logistics. They work in many operational sides that are not directly linked with the armed conflict against Israel. And as a matter of fact, we've had people who were non-related being killed, including a young 8-year-old girl. So you're talking about a mass barbaric attack. As a matter of fact, one of the senior figures in Hezbollah called it an act of genocide, and this is a very serious accusation coming from Hezbollah. With regards to the pagers, the confirmed reports that came talk about pagers that were handed to Lebanon approximately 4 to 5 months ago, and Hezbollah had a batch of these pagers. This came at the same time that the Secretary General of Hezbollah warned the members of Hezbollah from using the mobile phones or wireless devices. Hezbollah, they have a wired network that is protected and safe. As a matter of fact, they said that that was what helped them mostly in previous battles with Israel. But when it comes to any wireless connections, these connections are very much vulnerable and they are susceptible to being attacked by Israel, who's very well known to have very advanced technology in terms of cyber attacks on Hezbollah and on other movements as well. So these pagers are a new batch that Hezbollah received. That was also confirmed by people who were affected. From some of the videos that we've seen, we had one of the people who came in this video said that, is this a new pager? Is this the new pager, in reference to the explosive device and the fact that the older pagers were not exploding. So who handed these pagers and how comes they exploded with these people in Lebanon? When it comes to that, there are two versions. The first version is saying that Hezbollah indeed received a new batch alongside others, and this batch was replaced in transit with a batch that included explosive. That's the first version. The second version, there's more support for the second version, is the fact that these pagers, they had some sort of software that increased the heat of the battery, which led it to explode. Why do I say that this is most likely the more accurate version? It's because many people said that the device was heating before exploding. On either side, you're talking about a massive attack. And this didn't just happen in Lebanon, multiple parts of Lebanon, not just one specific location, but it also happened in Syria with 11 people wounded. You're talking about a mass-scale operation that is unprecedented. This is probably the biggest single attack that Israel has carried out that led to casualties when it comes to cyber attacks. Because don't forget, mainly cyber attacks, you're talking about malicious spyware, something to destroy certain infrastructure or systems or technologies, like the previous attacks on Iran and on other locations too. But now you have people who are wounded, people who are killed, people who are seriously injured. And you're not just talking about members of Hezbollah, you're talking about the civilian population. And like I said, the Hezbollah, one of the Hezbollah senior figures, he said that this is a genocide against the Lebanese people. Israel, of course, they did not confirm, as usual, but of course it's Israel, and Hezbollah already blamed Israel in a second statement that they made today. Firstly, they said we're investigating and we're looking into everything when it comes to this attack. They later on came and put all of the blame on Israel. As a matter of fact, they also said that this attack will lead to a response that Israel would potentially expect but also not expect, in ways that they've seen before and in ways that they have not seen before. And from the level of tone that we're talking about, we're looking at a very serious escalation. When it comes to Israel, this is coming at a very sensitive time. This is coming at a time where we've had increased threats against Lebanon, but also talks and negotiations between Benjamin Netanyahu and the previous member of the Likud party who left the Likud party and heavily criticized Benjamin Netanyahu, Gideon Sa'ar, that Netanyahu wants to put instead of Yoav Gallant as the defense minister. And this attack probably froze this action, at least in the short coming days. Of course, that doesn't mean it's completely written off, but with this level of attack, you're not looking at any potential changes when it comes to significant positions. And Gideon Sa'ar is a man, like I said, who criticized Netanyahu heavily, but now he's showing more willingness to accept Netanyahu's vision when it comes to the judicial reform, because Netanyahu is not just thinking about the now, and he's had a lot of problems with Yoav Gallant. He's looking at the future, and if he would bring Sa'ar to his coalition, he would most likely continue with him even if they reach a ceasefire at some point and de-escalate, because Sa'ar had more leniency and is showing more leniency when it comes to the judicial reform, hinting that he will let Netanyahu get away with having his full control over the judicial system. So now you're talking about a dangerous event and a dangerous escalation, unprecedented escalation, and an act of barbarism, reckless barbarism from Israel. Usually when you want to conduct any sort of cyber attack, it wouldn't be in this form, especially when you're talking about civilians. But again, Israel constantly shows how uncivilized and how barbaric it is. And again, it's not surprising by the level of genocide that's coming from Gaza. And the scenes coming from Lebanon just highlight how barbaric it is. You're talking about people in supermarkets, people in hospitals, people in markets having these devices exploding in them, and having casualties not just on them but on other people, on people who are next to them as well. Hezbollah, in their second statement today, they of course blamed Israel, and they said that they will be retaliating. When it comes to this retaliation, you're probably talking about an escalation that will inevitably lead to an all-out war. The reason I say this is, no matter how calculated you want to be, when Israel starts to attack civilians, they will be met with attacks on civilians. The equation that Hezbollah put ever since the beginning was civilian attacks will be met with civilian attacks. The way that Israel behaves with the attacks of Hezbollah dictates how Hezbollah responds. And now you're talking about 3,000 casualties. That's a very big number. And Israel crossed all the lines when it comes to civilian casualties in Lebanon, meaning Hezbollah will retaliate against potentially civilians in Israel as well. The second reason is, well, the course that we've been seeing for the past 11 months is only escalation after escalation. This, in my opinion, is coming primarily as a response to Hezbollah's attack on Tel Aviv on the basis of 8,200 unit, where they received confirmations that at least 22 were killed from that unit and over 70 were wounded. Israel, of course, did not elaborate as to the level of attacks, but we've heard that the head of the 8,200 unit, Yossi Sariel, resigned. All of a sudden he resigned, and we haven't seen him resign. We haven't seen him deliver a speech. There were suspicions before that he was actually killed in those attacks, but of course there's a lot of censorship in Israel when it comes to that. And Hezbollah have shown in the past 11 months that they indeed have a lot of sophistication when it comes to technology and cyber attacks and infiltration. In Israel, all of their recordings in Israel, their recordings when they attack, the fact that they have intel as to where the Israeli units are based, who are conducting operations against Hezbollah, and that they target them before they declare their presence, the fact that they attack IDF units who are hiding in civilian buildings that were evacuated in the northern parts of Israel. And also today they released an image or footage of a drone that Israel was sending to Lebanon, dropping leaflets to warn the citizens of southern Lebanon. Hezbollah released footage of the drone with the Israelis, with the IDF, and when they were taking it out, meaning that they already hacked the device when it was in Israeli possession. So you're talking about cyber attack here versus cyber attack there. But the level of attack that Israel conducted now is unprecedented, and it's probably one of the biggest attacks when it comes to cyber that led to civilian casualties. What type of response are we expecting from Hezbollah? Well, so far we need to understand what Hezbollah used. So far they've used only a fraction of their power. Hezbollah, when it comes to the missiles, they've only used primarily Katyusha missiles. They've also used the Burkan, which is a short-range heavy missile with a warhead that can get up to 700-800 kilograms, but the average is approximately 500 kilograms. That causes a lot of destruction, but again, that's short range. And when it comes to the areas that they cover, they are not extending beyond the northern part of Israel, primarily the upper and lower Galilee areas. Now, if Hezbollah want to get new areas in their fire range, you're talking about big cities in the northern parts of Israel. And if they do that, and if they start attacking civilian buildings or strategic civilian infrastructure in Israel, we will be having a situation where Israel undoubtedly will respond in Lebanon with a massive attack. And Israel could be using this attack, again, as a pretext to carry out their massive invasion in Lebanon. So far, we've heard the Israelis talking about Netanyahu approving a military campaign or an extension of the military campaign in Lebanon. We've had this attack just days after Benjamin Netanyahu's declaration, meaning that we already have an implementation of Netanyahu's expansion plan in Lebanon. This came in the form of cyber attack because this is where Israel excels at when it comes to military operations. When it comes to the ground invasion, yesterday we were talking about the fact that it's in question the level of Israeli capability to conduct a large-scale ground invasion, especially with the trouble that they're facing in Gaza. They have been in Gaza for 11 months now. Hamas probably has maybe 10%, if not even less, of Hezbollah's capability. And with all of that, they haven't been able to reach any of their objectives in Gaza, which is considered to be the weakest link in the military resistance fronts. With Hezbollah, like I said, they haven't shown 5% of their firepower so far and their capabilities, and they have a lot that they haven't used so far. However, with Israel implementing their expansion now of the operations in Lebanon, a case of an Israeli invasion in Lebanon is more probable now. Whether or not it will be successful, because that's a different question. Many people in Israel are already criticizing Benjamin Netanyahu and the government, saying that if we have to invade Lebanon, we will have to withdraw from Lebanon because we don't have enough military capabilities, capacities, and troops to continue controlling that area. If we're struggling in Gaza, how are we to make that happen in Lebanon? And if we want to invade Lebanon to withdraw afterwards, why don't we reach a settlement now? Because we've had periods where the Israeli defense minister was talking about a potential deal coming with Lebanon. The American administration, they sent many representatives to Lebanon to try and reach a deal when it comes to Hezbollah, but the Lebanese always said that they come with threatening messages rather than any attempt to reach a deal. Clearly, the United States is on the Israeli side when it comes to this. And even if the United States administration declare that they do not want an escalation with Israel, they are coordinating everything with them. The relevant military figures of the American administration have been in Israel back and forth many times to coordinate with Israel any potential escalations against Lebanon, because the American administration knows very well that any large-scale operation in Lebanon will undoubtedly increase the levels and chances of a regional war breaking out. So far, Israel is not changing its authorization to increase the safety measures when it comes to the population in Israel. This means that Israel hasn't seen any active preparation from Hezbollah yet when it comes to a large-scale attack that will come in the form of missiles and drones on Israel, although we've had cases of Hezbollah attacking Israel without Israel being prepared. However, usually when Israel is expecting a massive attack coming from Lebanon, they will change the general instructions for the public and tell them that you will need to be next to secure locations. They previously released messages that the population need to prepare food, that they need to prepare for electricity shortages and water shortages, and people need to pack medicines and stay in safe locations for periods of days where they wouldn't be able to receive anything externally. That's in case, of course, of an all-out war breaking with Lebanon. They haven't given the Israeli population these instructions yet, but we will undoubtedly see a massive escalation in the coming days, if not in the coming hours.